One of the joys of living in Southern California, Sunday morning earthquakes, well, earthquakes in general. I also just managed to really freak myself out by thinking that a tree root was a sleeping coyote. I was adamant. I was like, oh my God, there's a sleeping coyote. It's not, Laura. It was a tree root. Thoughts for today. Comparison items. It's a bitch, right? We all know. Comparing yourself to others is a really mundane, silly, but infectious thing that we all do. Interestingly, so I think we all compare like what we see on Instagram, right? And, we compare successes, careers, bodies, incomes, clothes, everything. It's infectious comparison. One thing that I think we do is that he likes to sniff every tree. One thing I think that we do that maybe gets talked about a bit, but hey, if I do it, then I'm always sure that at least one person out there also might do it too. Comparing what we eat to what somebody else eats, and that's why I personally think those what I eat in a day videos are really harmful. But even kind of in a real life situation, if you live with somebody or, you live with your family, whoever you're around regularly, I do it, compare what I eat to what somebody else is eating. To go into too much detail, this weekend, BH has not been able to eat or drink certain things, and I've been able to eat and drink what we'd normally eat and drink, right? And that is, there's part of my ED brain that really plays into, and it's really hard, I will say, even if you haven't got an ED or had an ED, that, it's a really difficult mentality. And I think as women, we're generally told that we should consume less than men, or that we should just consume the least, in fact. Speaking quite candidly, even on a regular weekend or weeks, whenever, BH and I are, similar build to a degree, and yet there is this, I eat more than her, right? I just do. I just require more food. But thanks to this very patriarchal mentality that women shouldn't eat a lot, women need the least amount of food, and, women basically just shouldn't eat for whatever reason. Try and round off my verbal diarrhea. It's just become a bit more heightened this weekend because I've eaten differently, and that's normal, that's okay. Probably just saying this to myself, but I just thought that if anybody was in a similar boat this weekend or in life in general, it's okay to eat more than your better half, and you don't need to rationalise it. Part of what I was doing this weekend was I was rationalising it, so I was like, oh well, I exercised, or I did this, or I did that, or whatever. And in fact, it doesn't even need an excuse. If you require food, you don't need an excuse for that. It harpers back to some of the intuitive eating principles. If you have read the intuitive eating book, there is one principle that is unconditional permission to eat, and it kind of harpers that back to that a bit, which is that you don't need a reason. Sorry, that must be really annoying. You don't need a reason to eat. If you're hungry, even if you're not hungry, you have unconditional permission to eat, whether for whatever reason. I have no real way of rounding this off, other than to say you have unconditional permission to eat. It does not need to mirror or reflect or have anything to do with what anybody around you is eating. And that, I think, is part of the hardest bit, is not comparing what's on your plate to anyone around you, anyone on the internet, etc., etc. Is where I'm trying to get to with this. Have I made myself clear? Probably not.